So at number 2 in the pound for pound rankings is Khabib Nurmagomedov. Do I agree with that one? Yeah, I do. 28-0, 12-0 in the UFC. He got his title shot quite late. His 10th fight was his title shot. Since then, he's had 2 title defenses. But before he got his title, on the way up, he had some good wins. He beat RDA the year just before RDA became champion. It was a dominant decision. He beat Edson Barbosa when he was ranked 4. Edson Barbosa's, he was a serious kicker. Still is a good fighter. He just lost his fight against Dan Ige at featherweight. But most people, including myself, thought it was a robbery and Barbosa won. So Barbosa's still kicking about. One of the strongest kickers in the UFC. If not the best, that switch kick. And then you got Michael Johnson. Khabib beat Michael Johnson when he was ranked 6th. And that was... Michael Johnson was really good at that time. Michael Johnson beat Tony Ferguson. He just came off a knockout against Dustin Poirier. He was really doing good at that time. Now he's not doing so much. Now he's more of a 50-50, winning some, losing some. But at that time, he was doing quite solid. So Khabib beat some good guys on the way up. Then obviously he fought for the title. He beat Ali Quinta, ranked number 11. That wasn't the best win. But it's not his fault, he was meant to fight Tony Ferguson for the 4th time. Tony obviously got injured then, Holloway jumped in, Pettis jumped in, Felder jumped in. They all couldn't make the fight. So his 5th opponent, he got him on a day's notice as well. So that wasn't a bad win either, And Ali Quinta, a good counter wrestler. Khabib dominated him, showed he had a good jab in that fight. And he done well. He done well on that fight. It wasn't the Khabib we normally see, but it was a dominant. One of the judges had a 50-43, so he got a couple 10-8 rounds in. Since then, he beat Conor McGregor, and Conor McGregor, double champion, featherweight and lightweight. Didn't defend his belts, but, he killed it. He ripped through those rosters. Conor McGregor beat Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier, Eddie Alvarez. He's beat some big guys, and, Khabib beat him by finish as well. He finished him in the 4th round. He dominated him on the ground, and the stand-up everywhere. He lost 1 round, yes, but he did dominate him. And we know a lot of people say that it wasn't the 100% Conor. Conor was unfocused. He came off Floyd Mayweather fight, 100 million richer. And yeah, I agree with that. It wasn't the fully focused Conor we normally see, and that the fight would be much better in Conor's favour if they fought again. But I still think Khabib would win. It was quite dominant, and even on the stand-up, even if that was Conor off a layoff, Khabib fought arguably, if not the best striker on the UFC roster, standing for a whole round, and Conor couldn't finish him. I know he was gassed because of the first round. Khabib, wrestled him a lot, but still, the best striker. Khabib's not that bad then, to be able to stand against him. And then he beat him, obviously. And then the year after the suspension, he came back, beat Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier was in his prime. He came off a win against Max Holloway. He was the champion at featherweight at the time. So Dustin was a real interim champion. He became a real world-class champion by beating Max Holloway. He beat Justin Gaethje before that. Justin Gaethje just about to fight. He just beat Tony Ferguson, destroyed him, and is about to fight Khabib. If Khabib fights again for the title, he's the interim champion now. Dustin Poirier also beat Eddie Alvarez, Anthony Pettis. So he's beat a lot of former champions. So when Khabib beat him, that was a serious victory. It was a big victory. So Conor and Dustin, good victories from Khabib, dominant. Now, when you look at Khabib, he's pound for pound number 2. He hasn't got a lot of title defenses. He's got 2 title defenses, but they are against good opponents. And then, so why is he pound for pound number 2? There's some people have had more title defenses. Stipe's got 3. So why is Khabib above? Well, Khabib's obviously undefeated, and his wins are much more dominant. So he's quite dominant in the octagon. There's only a few moments where you see him in adversity, and that's when people go, okay, they're surprised. And small little things that happen normally in a fight, but when they do happen to him, it's like, whoa, when Michael Johnson clipped him, and it wasn't a big clip, but he touched him a bit, and Khabib was all over the place for a couple seconds, but he recovered quickly. And then same with Dustin Poirier, rocked him in the 2nd round. Khabib recovered, and then Dustin with the guillotine. But these are small amounts, but the majority of the time he's quite dominant. So, then there are a couple things that people say, why he shouldn't be up there. Couple things. One of the things is, people say he lost to T-Bow, so he's not actually undefeated. If I'm looking at that fight, I think that at best it was a draw, but if it had to go to someone, it would have been to T-Bow. I think Khabib lost that fight. T-Bow won it. He outstruck Khabib. It was close, but he did outstrike him. Khabib's takedowns were all stuffed, and Khabib got taken down by T-Bow once. Then again, by saying that, T-Bow was on the juice, he was a middleweight cutting down, and he was on the juice, like heavy juice. And then once he came off the juice, T-Bow was getting knocked out by even Makachev, who's not even not even a knockout artist, so T-Bow one, you can't really say, it was 8 years ago. Khabib's developed a lot, his striking is nowhere near the same, his grappling's even better. So 8 years ago, I'm not really going to say anything about that win, that loss it was a win officially, but let's just say it's a loss. That loss wasn't as bad as he still doesn't affect his ranking, I think. Then another controversy, people say he's a weight bully. I don't know about that one too much, because Khabib says he walks about 185, 190. When you look at him, before, when he came off surgery and that, he was quite fat, he was quite puffy, and he didn't have a nutritionist, he couldn't make weight. At that time he was quite puffy, but now he's not actually that big. He's got a nutritionist. He looks, in the face-off against Dustin Poirier, he looked not that much bigger than him. He looked a little bit bigger. It's more or less his head that's just the size. It's just the size of his skull. But he's not actually that big. There's guys like Dan Hooker, who's used to fight at featherweight. He's at lightweight now. He's going to move up to welterweight soon because he's quite big. Then you got Dustin Poirier. He says he walks around 180, 185 and 190. Kevin Lee says he walks around 185, 190. Tony used to say he walks around at 200, which I don't believe. I think he walks out a bit less, but he still is quite a big guy. So there's a lot of guys that are quite big. And that thing about weight bully, I don't think it matters too much, because if you look at John Jones, Usman, Khabib, even Conor at 145, and Max Holloway. So the biggest guys in the divisions, obviously the best guys often, and they're just ripping through the division. So Conor at 145, Max Holloway at 145, Khabib at 155, Usman at 170, and John Jones at 205. The biggest guys are normally the best guys, but there are other guys that are quite big, like the ones I just mentioned, but they don't get called weight bullies because they're not as dominant, or maybe they don't grapple as much. But there are some that are definitely weight bullies. Usman, we'll get into Usman after. He definitely is, he uses it a lot. But Khabib, to be honest, it's not as big as people say. Yes, he uses his weight. It's not as big as people say, though. I don't think it's that much of a deal. And also, even his opponents, like Dustin Poirier just said, Khabib is not really about strength. And when I wrestled him, I didn't feel the strength that much. It was more about technique, his weight balance. His style is a bit different from the American style of wrestling. The other problem people say about his record, why, the pound for pound, he's got a padded record, and yeah, he definitely does have a padded record. His first 16 fights were definitely, before the UFC, were just they were ridiculous. When he was 14-0, he beat a guy who was 0-0. A guy making his pro debut, Khabib, was fighting him at 14-0. Khabib's fight just before he came to the UFC, when he was 16-0, he beat a guy who was 28-22. So, that padded record is just not, I get it. It's, trying to build up his thing, but it looks like all the Dagestanis are doing that. All of them got padded records. Suppose, they're just trying to market themselves, but that is just, you can't count those wins, so I don't count them at all. But then, why do I still count him as pound for pound number 2? Because when you're looking at his wins in the UFC, they're very dominant. He's still dominant in the UFC, 12-0 in the UFC. He's, with every win in the UFC, he's cleaning up that division, cleaning up that record. He's padded, but he's unpadding it a bit, with every single win. But I still think, if you wanted to get pound for pound number 1, Khabib said, give me pound for pound number 1 after the Dustin fight. I think, no, not yet. He doesn't deserve it yet. If he beats Justin Gaethje, if he decides to come back and fight, we don't know if he's going to retire or not. If he beats Justin Gaethje and then he goes and beats the Tony Ferguson, or the winner of Hooker and Ferguson, say they fight, or even if he goes up to welterweight and gets the win there against the champion there, then we can say, he's pound for pound number 1. Or if he beats Conor McGregor, a fully focused Conor McGregor that comes back, then we can argue that he's pound for pound number 1. Even though he would have 4 title defenses, and John Jones would have 14 or even more if he's 4-4 by then. Khabib's dominance is obviously there, and he's not on the juice as far as we know. We don't think he's on the juice. He hasn't been caught for it, and also the record. Title defenses at lightweight is 3, and if he gets 4, he's beat that. So there's in the most stacked division. So there's no, you can argue that he's pound for pound number 1 if he does that, and that's what I think he has to do to become pound for pound number 1.